Para quienes no tuvimos el privilegio de conocer al Rebe personalmente, siempre poder escuchar la palabra de una persona que estuvo con el Rebe es agua pura para el alma. Eso nos da fuerza, eso nos da ese contacto que quizás no pudimos tener. Hoy tenemos la oportunidad, realmente una oportunidad, un mérito increíble, de tener con nosotros nada más y nada menos que una persona que estuvo al lado del Rebe por más de 40 años. A veces, seguramente en alguna cena de Shabbat, en algún Fabrengen, habrán escuchado las historias del Baal Shem Tov, las historias del secretario del Baal Shem Tov. Y uno siempre se imagina cómo habrá sido el Baal Shem Tov, su secretario. Hoy tenemos nosotros al secretario del Baal Shem Tov de nuestra generación. Por eso estamos aquí hoy a la noche y queremos recibir con un fuerte aplauso al orador principal de la noche, al secretario del Rebe, el rabino Rebe. It's our privilege to welcome Rabbi Groner, the secretary of the Rebe. Un fuerte aplauso para él.
Truthfully, it is very difficult to speak about Gimel Tammuz. 19 years have passed since the Histalkos, the passing of the Rebbe. Gimel Tammuz is not a new date in the Jewish calendar. When Almighty Hashem instructed Joshua, to conquer the Holy Land, the Tanakh tells us that there was one battle that was very fierce, and as the day was going on, Yeshua was very concerned that if the sun will set and there will be darkness, he may not win the battle. And therefore he pleaded, Shemesh b'givoin doim. He asked that the sun should not set. And so it happened that the sun did not set that night. And there are different opinions in the Gemara and the Talmud. How long was Yeshua able to keep the sun from setting? Let me take you back 19 years. 19 years ago, on Shabbos, which was based Tammuz, the second day of Tammuz, the Rebbe was then in the hospital. 7 o'clock in the evening, the Rebbe's heart stopped. There was no blood pressure, no blood, nothing. Everything stopped completely. The doctors started resuscitation. By 7:30, they came to tell us, the Rebbe's secretaries that were there at the time, that it seemed that it's all over. There was one Oriental doctor from the Philippines, a resident, and he told his superiors that don't you remember, don't you know, that the body of this person is different than every other body? He has changed all the rules of the medical books. How can you give up on him? And he continued working on the Rebbe, and 10 to 8, the heart rate, blood pressure, everything came back. And as the doctors told us, the Rebbe was not here, and Hashem returned him to us. And as the time went on, by 9 o'clock, the Rebbe's condition was fairly very good. 1 o'clock in the morning, Motzei Shabbos, Saturday night, a repeat of what happened 7 o'clock. The Rebbe's heart again stopped. They started again the resuscitation. By 1:30, the doctors wanted to give up, but we, the Rebbe secretaries, pleaded with them. Just at 7 o'clock, you wanted to give up 7:30, but still you continued. So please continue again, which they did. However, by 10 to 2, they said that it seemed that it's all over. Shabbos was Beis Order, Talmud, the second days of Talmud. Saturday night, Motzei Shabbos, was Gimel Talmud. What is the difference between Beis Talmud and Gimel Talmud? Beis Talmud is a regular day of the calendar. Gimel Talmud has in it this ingredient of Shemesh, the given doim, that the sun does not set. The Rebbe wanted to send a message to us that although we may not see his physical body, however, we should know that his neshama, his soul, is constantly with us. And it's amazing if you take a moment and take an evaluation, take an account, what took place in the last 19 years. There were many writers, many philosophers, a week after the Rebbe passed away, said that within a year, Lubavitch will be off the map, Chas v'sholem. What actually happened during these 19 years? There are still hundreds, literally, hundreds of thousands of Yidden all over the world that are still connected to the Rebbe, feeling that the Rebbe is with them now. In the course of these 19 years, tens of thousands, men and women, old and young, became Bali Tshuva and became Hasidim of the Rebbe. In the course of these 19 years, how many thousands of Botei Chabad were established? How many hundreds of yeshivas were established? Yeshivas for boys and girls. How many mikvahs were built in the course of these 19 years? How much of literature, tens of thousands of literature was printed about Yiddishkeit during these 19 years. The neshama of the Rebbe is with us till this very day. The Rebbe is guiding each and every one of us. The Rebbe is teaching each and every one of us, and he's giving us the strength that we should be able to continue in doing the work that he has started. The Rebbe was not only a Rebbe for Hasidim. The Rebbe was not only a Rebbe for Jewish people. The Rebbe was a Rebbe, a leader for the entire world, Jew and Lahavl non-Jew alike. Let me give you just one example why we could say this. One day I received a telephone call in the office, and the person was on the other line, introduced himself, and a non-Jew. I am a New York State Senator. It's been a while that I have a very serious family problem. I've been going to different people that are able to advise, but nothing came about. My Jewish colleagues in the Senate advised me that I should try to get an appointment with Rabbi Schneerson because they feel that here I will find a proper solution. So I told them, come next week, you will be able to see the Rebbe. Okay, next week, was by the Rebbe for about a half hour. When he came out of the Rebbe, I saw that he was very emotional. He was very excited. So I approached him. I say, Mr. Senator, I'm not going to ask you anything private, but may I know what excites you by the Rebbe? What makes you so emotional? First of all, he says, I have to tell you, I presented to the Rebbe my problem, and the Rebbe gave us the best solution, how to bring a solution and an end to this understanding, this conflict. And I think as a result of this, our marriage will be a more happy marriage than it was till now. This took 10, 15 minutes, he says. And I was ready to get up and leave. And the Rebbe says, excuse me, Mr. Senator, please remain seated. And the Rebbe tells him, he says, we're going to turn the tables around. You came to ask me a question, I'm going to ask you a question. And he tells me, when the Rebbe told me that, I didn't understand. I was told that I'm in the presence of a person who has answers to all questions in the world. He has a question which he has to ask me, but as a respect to the Rebbe, I remain sitting. And this is what the Rebbe tells me, that just recently I was informed that in Manhattan there is a section called Chinatown, where many, many Chinese people live, thousands of Chinese. And the Rebbe tells him that I just found out that there are projects that they could receive from Washington, they could receive from Albany, the capital of New York State, and they can receive from New York City, which these projects, says the Rebbe to him, will make their life a better quality of life. And being that they are very quiet people, the Rebbe tells him, and they're not demanding it, so they're being deprived of it. So he asked the Rebbe, so what? The Rebbe says, so what? These people are your constituents. You are their senator. I would ask you to ask your staff to get informed what are those projects that these people could benefit to make their life a better quality of life. And the senator tells me, you ask me what I'm excited about. You ask me what I'm so emotional. Here is sitting a rabbi who I'm told that has tens and tens of thousands, maybe more, of followers whom he has to attend to. He has hundreds and hundreds of institutions all over the world that turn to him constantly for advice. He has nothing else to think about, just about a Chinese man in Chinatown. And he told me, can you assure you, Rabbi, there's not one Chinaman in Chinatown that knows Rabbi Schneerson, and there's not one Chinaman that Rabbi Schneerson knows. But it appears that to him it makes no difference. The first opportunity he has that he could make people's life a better quality of life, he utilizes that opportunity. And this, he told me, is called a real and a true leader. He's not only concerned about his own people, about the general people of the Jewish people, he's concerned about each and every one that he could help. The Rebbe was interested in every individual, regardless who he is and who he was. There was a couple of the Baba Sharov, who his congregation gave him and his wife a free ticket to go visit Eretz Yisrael, Israel. And of course, before they would make the trip, they would come to the Rebbe to get his blessing. When they came out of the Rebbe's room, the Rebbetzin tells me, I'm very sorry that I came here. I said, Rebbetzin, how could you say such a thing? Don't you want a bracha from the Rebbe that this trip should be successful? Of course I want. But you don't know what the Rebbe did to us, he says. I said, what did the Rebbe do to you? He changed our whole itinerary. The Rebbe tells us that being that last month I found out that there's a country called Romania. And in one of those countries there is an old age home for Jewish people. And I found out that there's no kosher kitchen there. The elderly people that used to eat kosher in their own home, God forbid, now have no other alternative but to eat the food that they are getting. On your way to Israel, you're going to stop in Romania, the Rebbe tells us. You're going to go to that city. You're going to make a meeting of the leaders of the city and tell them in my name that I ask them, I beg of them, institute the kosher kitchen, and I will pay half of the expense. The Rebbe doesn't know anyone at that old age home. I don't think that anyone at that old age home ever heard of the Rebbe. But as soon as the Rebbe hears that there is someone who needs assistance, needs help, and he could do something to help them, he's the first one to do that. This is what we have to take with us, the legacy of the Rebbe, one of the legacies. We have to realize that just like the Rebbe tried in every possible way to help other people, which if you want, put it under the category of Ahavas Yisrael, we have to do everything in our power to show the Rebbe that we are following his direction, his way of life, of doing everything possible in the idea of Ahavas Yisrael, to help another person, regardless if we know that person or not. The Baal Shem Tov said that we have to love every single Jew, even a Jew that we never met before. And if at a certain time, by divine providence, Hashgacha Protis, HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes that we should hear about that individual and find out that he's in need of any assistance, Hashem is expecting us to put everything aside and help that person. Let me tell you another story about what the Rebbe's philosophy is. We know that in the olden times and even today, in many Jewish communities, there is a free loan society, that people could take loans without paying any interest. And we had some of them, but there was one major one in Crown Heights, which was run by a Yid whose name was Rebe and Gordon. Before the time of the previous Rebbe, he was the president of this free loan society, and once a year, Reb Yochanan would present the previous Rebbe with a report of the activities of the society, which means how many people were able to get loans, what were the sums of the loans that were given out, who were the people that invested in this organization to help us give loans, and what's most important, how many of the borrowers were able to give back the money and to good and other, that there should be circulation in the society to help others. After the previous Rebbe passed away, we requested and asked the Rebbe that he should assume the presidency, which he agreed to. The first year after the Rebbe was president, and I knew that I had to present him with a report, I wrote up the report. But when I compared it to the report from the previous years, I realized that this year was a much greater success. What does that mean? I was able to give more people loans. I was able to give larger sums. I had more people investing. And what's the greatest thing for me, that most of the borrowers were able to pay back the money. I should be able to help others. So I said to myself that when I presented to the previous Rebbe a report, which was not so hatsy-tatsy, so to say, not so exciting, and I used to get a most beautiful thank you from the Rebbe for the work that I did from the previous Rebbe with a big smile. He tells me I couldn't imagine what type of smile I'm going to get for the Rebbe for showing him such a report that doesn't even compare to the previous ones. So I said, you knew what happened? He said, don't ask. I went into the Rebbe and I presented the Rebbe with the report, and the Rebbe went through every line. When the Rebbe comes to the last line, the Rebbe says, Rebbe Yochanan, this is all that you can do. He said, if I had a pit here, I thought I would get a big thank you with a big smile, and here I get a hot hit over the head. That's all I can do. The Rebbe realized my dilemma. And the Rebbe says, take a lesson from me. I'm standing here. I don't know what the Rebbe means, take a lesson from me. The Rebbe tells me, every night before we go to bed, we have a special prayer, the prayer of Kriya Shema Alamita. Before we go to sleep, we have to say a special prayer. And that is a time when a person should take into account of what was accomplished in the previous day, what should have been accomplished was actually accomplished. And the Rebbe tells Rabbi Yechon, and I have to tell you, that every night when I say this Kriya Shema, and I take an account of my activities, I say to myself, that's all you done? Why did you do a little more? Now let me interject over here. What was the Rebbe's day of work? The Rebbe literally, without exaggeration, the Rebbe worked every single weekday 18 hours. And we could be witnesses to that, the secretaries, because we had to be there most of the time. The Rebbe worked 7 days a week, 30 days a month, 365 days a year. I once spoke to a group of business people, and I told them that the Rebbe worked 730, 365. So one of the business people picked up the hand, Rabbi Groner. I thought the Rebbe was a Shabbat observant. How could you work 7 days a week? I said, let me explain to you. Once I tell you what kind of office, what kind of business the Rebbe had, then tell me whether your question is a question. The Rebbe's business was not a real estate business, it was not a stock exchange, it wasn't a business of selling materials. The Rebbe's office was a different type of office. That was an office where the Rebbe studied, where the Rebbe prayed, where the Rebbe gave advice to people, where the Rebbe gave lessons to people, from which the Rebbe distributed charity to tzedakah. And the Rebbe told us secretaries that on Shabbos, if an emergency arises, where a woman is having difficulty having a child, where a person has to have an emergency operation, my door is open on Shabbos. You may come in and present to me the question, and I'll try to give you an answer. On Yom Kippur, said the Rebbe, when there's intermission between one prayer to the other, and something emergency comes up, I am there to help you. The Rebbe would come to his office 10:30 in the morning, and when he did not have private audiences, he would leave not before 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. But he did not leave empty-handed. When the Rebbe came out of his office, he had a bag like this with all the mail that he did not have a chance to take care of while he was in the office. He took it home. When the Rebbe came the next morning, 10 o'clock, we had a pack like this of written answers we were to give over. The Rebbe and his wife told us that after a few years, when the Rebbe slept only 2, 3 hours a night, she pleaded with him, you continue this way. How will you have strength to continue to be the leader of the Chassidim? And she tells us that the Rebbe said, please come into my office, which he had in his apartment, in his house. Do you see what's going on this table? Do you see this pack of mail? And she tells us that the Rebbe says to her, you want I should lay in bed and these people should wait for answers? I cannot do that. I have to give them the answers as soon as possible. After the Rebbe working in such a schedule for 15 years, the secretaries had a meeting among themselves. We have to do something to give the Rebbe some rest. He has to take some sort of vacation. So at the end of Long Island, there's part of Long Island called Montauk. It's a very secluded place. We visited it. We found that that would be a most opportune place for the bee to be secluded. We would arrange for the Rebbe 3 times a day in Binyan. There would be a mikveh for the Rebbe, but we would make sure that the Rebbe has no telephones. At that time, there were no faxes, no emails. No mail would be given to the Rebbe. The Rebbe should be able to take a 2-week vacation that to take his mind off all the worries of the whole world. One of the elder secretaries goes into the Rebbe and he says, we had a meeting and I want to tell you what the meeting is about. And he tells the Rebbe that we want to offer the Rebbe to take a vacation for 2 weeks. First, the Rebbe thanked him. You're thinking about me, you're thinking about my health. And then the Rebbe says, let's play this out. I'm in Montauk, no telephones, no mail. You're sitting in the office, and you get a phone call from the hospital that there's an individual who must have immediate operation within the 24 hours, and without my blessing and consent, he's not going to go through with it. What are you going to tell the doctors? We're sorry. You have to wait 2 weeks. A boy and girl are going out, and you want to become chassan and kala, and they want to already finish the shidduch. Without my blessing, they won't do it. Children, you have to wait another 2 weeks. But what's most important, the Rebbe says, you say that for 2 weeks you're not going to give me any mail. How many pieces of mail comes from the mail? Not what people bring into the office, and not what you get messages from the telephone every minute. So the secretary says averagely it's 250 pieces of mail. It's even really more. And the Rebbe says 250 times 14. How many thousands of pieces of mail is that? And the Rebbe says, when I come back on the 15th day, you're going to bring me in all the sacks of the mail, and you're going to tell me, Rebbe, people are waiting for answers. And this is what you call vacation? There's no such thing as vacation. There was 1 year that the month of Tishrei, people come to be with the Rebbe. 1 year, about 1,800 guests came from the whole world. Sukkot, the Rebbe tells me, that after Simchas Torah, before these people leave, I would like to see them in a private visit, which we call in our language yichidus, a private. So I tell the Rebbe, in one night, to put in 1,800 people, leave it will be half a minute. It's not possible. So what do you want to do? I say, with the Rebbe's permission, I want to divide it into 2 groups. One night we'll have about 800-900 people. The other night the same. He says, go right ahead. So I made a lot of it. That whoever picked out Tuesday night would be Tuesday night, Wednesday night be Wednesday night. Came Tuesday night, 8 o'clock. That's when the Rebbe usually started to receive the people. The Rebbe started at 8 o'clock. 3 o'clock in the morning, I went into the Rebbe, and I asked the Rebbe for a 15-minute intermission to stop the Yechidus. The Rebbe says, why? He says, because it appears to me that it's going to take another 4 or 5 hours, and I would want the Rebbe should refresh himself, have a cup of tea, a piece of cake or something. And the Rebbe tells me, you don't understand how you're contradicting yourself. You're telling me that people sitting outside, we may have to wait another few hours. You want that because of me they should wait another 15 minutes? How could you even think of such a thing? There's no tea, the Rebbe said, there's no cake, no intermission, continue. So, the Rebbe finished 10:30 in the morning. Came the day after, I asked the Rebbe to change from Wednesday night to Thursday night. The Rebbe said, nothing doing. The Rebbe started Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, he finished at 11 o'clock in the morning. The Rebbe devoted himself, he gave of himself entirely to people. The Rebbe tells this Rebbe Yochanan, when I make a cheshbon on nefesh, I take an account of myself every night. I say to myself, how come I didn't anymore? What more could a man like that do? What can he do more? But what is the Rebbe teaching us? The Rebbe is teaching us that we have to sow, that we should never be happy with what we did. A person is growing. If Eibush Hashem gives you another day, says the Rebbe, you have to add another activity. You have to grow more and more in what you are doing till now. And these are some of the ideas which we could sit many hours more. The time is up. That we could take lessons from the Rebbe, how the Rebbe conducted himself. And that is why we say that the Rebbe is still here with us. The Rebbe's neshama is still with us because we could still take much guidance from the Rebbe. We could still make much instructions. The Rebbe is constantly blessing us. The Rebbe is constantly giving us the strength that we should be able to continue and follow in that direction that he expects us to go. And one of the major things that the Rebbe was interested is the idea of education. The Rebbe said that we have to do everything in our paper and our power to expand the institutions of education. We have to try to help them financially that they should be able to expand. And as the Rebbe expressed himself, it is our obligation that not one Jewish child, boy or girl, should not be able to receive a Jewish education because of monetary matters. If the parent does have the ability to pay for it, that's not a reason why they should not have the Jewish education. Each and every one of us has to remember that they have a responsibility for every Jewish child. We are responsible for everyone. And that's why by Matan Torah, the only thing that the Eibush accepted as a guarantor. And in that merit, he gave all of the Jewish people, starting from Moshe Rabbeinu down, when the Jewish people said that our children are going to be the guarantors, because they are going to continue the future of the Jewish nation. And that was one of the major projects that the Rebbe had asked that each and every one of us should do as much as possible. And the Rebbe said when every Jewish child will get education, his behavior will be such that will bring closer to the coming of Mashiach. Because every good act that a Yid does brings the Mashiach closer. And Hashem should bless each and every one of you, and each and every one of us, that we should take these lessons from the Rebbe. We should remember that the Rebbe is guiding us. The Rebbe is encouraging us. The Rebbe is giving us the strength. The Rebbe is giving us the ability that we should be able to continue and do what the Rebbe expects us of in every aspect of life. And Hashem should bless each and every one of us that we should merit to see the Rebbe as soon as possible, and the Rebbe should take us out of this galut, and he should bring us to the Holy Land, that where we will have the full freedom and all the blessings that the Eibush wants to give us, we will receive in Eretz HaKodesh and the Holy Land. Thank you.